There has been a rise in use of words larper and tourists. You've likely seen them thrown around in conversation pertaining to media and being used negatively against individuals who apparently don't know what they're talking about. What's up with the rise of the use of these words? Why is everyone angry at each other over nothing? What the hell is a normie? What the hell is gatekeeping? Why am I asking so many questions? Why is this video
rated R for retarded?
Have you ever just been trying to enjoy the media you like, talking in a community, then someone says the most abhorrent, nonsensical statement about the media you've ever heard? This guy's likely a larper. You ever seen somebody say that the media has been morally wrong and it should change? That person is likely a tourist. Are you just talking with a fellow fan about some media, and then another dude comes in asking a ton of questions, not knowing anything but is somewhat genuinely interested? That person is likely a normie. Together, these three groups of people make up exactly who should be gatekept. So, I must first, as usual, give out definitions and explanations for everything in this video. First, I'll explain what gatekeeping is meant to be. Gatekeeping is when you limit or restrict the amount of access or information that someone can get on something. Another way you can phrase this is filter. You can filter certain people in order to get the desired target audience. My proposition for this video is to say that gatekeeping is actually effective. You just gotta know how to do it right. I'll tell you how this video is gonna go. I'm going to go through each categories of the undesirables in order of how undesirable they are, meaning the last will be the worst kind of people. Then, whilst I go over each one, I'll discuss how gatekeeping can be applied to them and how it actually improves the situation overall. Of course, I'll be defining each undesirable as I come across it. What exactly is a normie? Well, if we went back 10 to 15 years ago, this thing used to be the go-to word instead of tourist or larper. But here we are in 2026, and even the term LARP has been abused so much. But to explain what a normie actually is, it's just people that aren't really in the know. It's just people that are into just mainstream content and don't really have any niche interests. I'm going to be real with everyone right now. There actually isn't anything wrong with being a norm. At absolute worst, some hardcore fans may find normies annoying due to the way they approach the media, but honestly, that's preferable to what's coming on the list. So how to effectively gatekeep against normies? Well, preferably, you want to actually convert the normies into actual fans of the media. Out of those on this list, they have the highest chances of becoming real fans of the media, and enjoying it for what it is. They are relatively impressionable, and haven't been exposed to a lot of media like this, so there is actually quite a decent chance of you bringing them into the fold, although do be warned, it can completely backfire and the normie may just look at you weirdly for having shown them something like this. But that's a gamble worth having. The gatekeep method here just involves drip feeding them into the media. At the same time, don't just jump straight into the hype moments and aura in order to ruin the flow of the story. Let them understand the narrative hype and slowly coast through it. If they like it, you've got another fan. And if they don't, then that's just where it ends. Normies are by far the easiest to deal with and also the most common. Just be a normal human being around them and you'll literally have no issues with a normie. So I'm just going to move on to the more challenging issues. Although before I move on, a quick add-on to the script is that there actually is a subgroup of normies that actually hate people who are into niche interests. They're not really tourists or larpers, and they actually are part of the normie category, so it does actually add another risk factor into the normie category. But do understand that these people aren't that, they're not that big. Most people just have learned to respect other people's hobbies. But there is normies that do shit on everyone else for having some different tastes. Be it out of envy, or be it just because they believe their way is the right way, and everything else is just you trying to show off. Well, if it isn't the infamous larper. The ones that's been making rounds on social media, and is currently the most abused terms in recent history. Well, what is a larper exactly? Well, to differentiate them from normies, they actually are familiar with the content. They seemingly know a decent bit of information about the media too. Hell, they may even go out of the way to learn some of the niche information that some of the media holds. Like for instance, if the media in question was a music artist, and they may go like, oh yeah dude, his hidden album was like the best album he ever dropped. But notice what I'm saying though. It's almost as if they're putting on a performance rather than actually enjoying the thing. And that's exactly what makes them larpers. Based on the original definition, larpers, or to LARP, live action roleplay, when you LARP a series, you basically put on a performance of fake interest and knowledge. Why would anyone do this? Well, aside from being retarded, reasons include FOMO, fear of missing out. They believe they're just missing out on something if they don't join in. They may not understand what they're missing, but they understand that they are missing something, thus acting the part to feel included. Other reasons include their friends are into it and they just want to continue conversations. There are more malicious reasons like feigning interest in order to get something out of it, and the fans, but if I go too much into the malicious reasons, it might end up encroaching on tourist territory, and so I'll leave that for that section. As you can see from this explanation, LARPers aren't mostly harmful, but they are increasingly annoying when it comes to discussions about the media. Not only do they not actually know what they're talking about and give off mid-wit vibes, but they actually don't really invest or spend anything in the media. You're probably sitting there wondering, well, what's the problem with that? Well, if they don't spend money in the media, then the media can't generate profits, and thus might be forced to discontinue. You can see this kind of example best when it comes to certain shows where people believe that it should continue due to overwhelmingly positive reviews of it, but it doesn't actually sell any products and thus generates no profits for the business, making there no reason for it to continue. The best way to gatekeep around LARPers is quite troublesome, but also just direct. First, the most important part and the most difficult is to establish if they actually are a LARP. You cannot just judge someone based off their playtime or how much money they spent on it. Finding out the LARP is, could be quite tricky against long-time LARPers, but there will be established things that may make it obvious. To use Project Moon for example, I love the series by now. There's a character called Roland, the main character of Library of Ruinia. Spoilers ahead, and I will put a timestamp, but in summary, he isn't actually some washed up grade 9 fixer like he portrays himself at the beginning. He is instead a grade 1 fixer who is quite competent at his job. This is important to LARPers because people actually call him the Black Silence, a color fixer which is above a grade 1 fixer. And they make this mistake not just because they don't know any better, but because the game itself has actually referred to him as the Black Silence. Certain actions that he does throughout the story is actually attributed to the Black Silence. Even lore-wise, the characters themselves do call him the Black Silence and get confused, thinking that he, when he does his actions throughout the story, is the Black Silence. But in actuality, his wife is the Black Silence. It doesn't help that when you fight against Roland and you already get his key page, it's all labeled the Black Silence. The misconception is so great that even on Roblox games, they have made this mistake by calling him the Black Silence as well. But the knowledge of Roland not being the Black Silence is such a commonly found LARP, to the point where LARPers have actually evolved to this, and now it isn't a metric you can use anymore. And that's the problem with LARPers. They can keep on evolving to the point where obvious signs of LARP become less and less obvious as they work to cover up their tracks better. But don't fear, there'll always be ways to identify LARPers if you're a real fan of the media. Eventually a LARPer will reveal their true nature, but you just gotta be patient and treat it with a case-by-case basis. In order to effectively gatekeep against LARPers, just talk about the media directly, and eventually they'll fall out of the conversation due to not actually understanding what's going on. For example, if it's about a TV show, just talk about the events that happened in the TV show, rather than a controversy or other talks about it. Don't listen to their headcanons about what they think a character might be, rather just talk about what a character already is. In due time, you'll find out this person doesn't know anything, and from there, just acknowledge that this person is a retard, LARPing the media and trying to act smarter than they actually are. To wrap this section up, unlike normies that are easy to convert, LARPers are likely LARPing for a reason. Of course you can try to make them real fans, but I'll just advise against that, and just ignoring them will be better, as their opinions literally matter less than any fan of the media. This section isn't going to be as friendly as the normie section, nor as long as the larper section. It's pretty straightforward and to the point. A tourist is a person that doesn't actually seek to join in or partake in the media, hence the term tourist, as in someone that's passing through a country visiting it. A tourist passes through media without actually meaning to join it. But what makes tourists detestable is that they actually want to change the way the media operates to suit their tastes. I've made 2 videos talking about the representation side of tourists, but to explain the other side is just how annoying they can be. Remember, they don't actually like the media. They are worse than larpers because at least a larper is just trying to pretend to like it. Tourists aren't even doing that. They just hate the media and want to change it, and the only way to prevent it from happening is by gatekeeping. There was actually an incident in recent history with Blue Archive and how they're doing a streamer collab in order to promote their game. However, they picked people that have gone on record to say negative things about the type of game that Blue Archive is, and or have shown distaste for the type of people that are into Blue Archive. And so, long story short, the Blue Archive fans was not having it. And the Blue Archive fans had an outrage and was making many posts talking to the Blue Archive people in order to stop this collab from happening. And surprisingly, the event was actually cancelled due to that. That was a gatekeeping success story for the community. Say what you want about Blue Archive and its fans, but what this shows is that it's actually possible to gatekeep, and what you have to do is that you have to do it right. The best way to gatekeep against the tourist is to just prevent them from having a say in matters involving your media. You don't just ignore them like larpers. You have to actively prevent them from having a voice in your spaces. Because remember, no matter what it is, they don't actually seek to enjoy the media, they just seek to change it to better fit them for political, personal, or even religious reasons. So you cannot let that happen. But before I end my video, I should make it extremely clear that the most effective gatekeeping method is when the media just gatekeeps itself. All media inherently do this via age ratings, topics, and just stories that not everyone enjoys. If you don't try to appeal to everyone, that in itself is a form of gatekeeping, although a weak one. Most of this type of gatekeeping is weak, hence why it doesn't actually work. Like how age rating on games or movies doesn't stop kids from watching or playing it, or how dark topics in media don't stop literal overgrown babies from watching it, or vice versa with grown men being into My Little Pony. However, if you make media in a certain way without bending the knee, then perhaps it can be gatekept a little better. Well, in any case, that's me. Follow me on Twitter where I post my drawings and occasionally get into retarded fights. Also, as a final question, is it console or console?